40 years, and still, this particular file continues to resonate, to haunt, even, those who have spent decades seeking answers.
The Yuba County Five, a disappearance so profoundly illogical, it challenges every investigative instinct.
Why would 5 grown men willingly leave the safety of their homes, drive directly into a deepening blizzard, utterly unprepared for the conditions?
The evidence suggests a sudden, inexplicable departure. No coats, no emergency gear, as if they were merely stepping out for a moment, never intending to return to the warmth.
And then the final, chilling discovery. A remote trailer, stocked with enough provisions to last a year. A safe haven, overlooked.
It makes no sense. A year's worth of food, right there, untouched. A conscious decision not to access it, or an inability brought on by something else entirely.
These core paradoxes, these unanswered whys, they form the very backbone of the Yuba County Five mystery. And then, silence.
To truly begin to unravel the tragedy, we first had to understand the men themselves.
Locally, they were simply known as the Boys, a quiet, almost affectionate moniker.
Ted Weiher, Jack Madruga, Bill Sterling, Jackie Huett, and Gary Mathias. 5 individuals, ranging in age from 24 to 32.
They were a tight-knit group from Yuba City and Marysville. The evidence suggests they were bound by more than just friendship. Shared struggles with mild intellectual disabilities and psychiatric conditions defined much of their daily existence.
Gentle by nature, deeply reliant on routine, and from all accounts, utterly inseparable.
Which is precisely why it makes no sense. For men so dependent on their established patterns, so averse to the unknown, for them to simply vanish.
And then, silence. A profound, unsettling void where their predictable lives once unfolded.
Let's revisit the known movements for February 24, 1978. The initial reports suggest a routine trip.
The evidence suggests, investigator, that on that date, the group traveled approximately 50 miles south to the UC Davis campus.
A college basketball game, specifically.
Indeed, avid fans, no doubt. But the critical detail is their own team, the Gateway Gators, had a significant tournament game scheduled for the following day.
Every logical reason, then, to have returned home, to prepare.
Precisely. We know their uniforms were laid out. The winners' trophies, we've confirmed, were awaiting their return. All indications point to a clear intention to be back to compete.
And yet, they never made it back, did they? It makes no sense. The meticulous planning, the anticipation.
And then, silence. Complete silence.
Our last confirmed point of contact, based on witness statements and recovered receipts, places them at Bears Market in Chico.
A routine pit stop. Small, unremarkable purchases. Hostess pies, a Snickers bar, a few sodas. The kind of items you grab on the way home.
The clerk, she remembered them distinctly, said they were slightly agitated, annoyed because the store was closing for the night.
Roughly 10 p.m., a precise if unsettling timestamp.
They returned to Jack Madruga's Montego, the turquoise 1969 model. Our trajectory simulations are clear. From that location, their route home lay directly south, a clear, uneventful path.
The evidence suggests a pattern of intended return, mundane items for a mundane journey.
But they didn't turn south. They simply didn't.
It makes no sense. All indicators pointed one way, and yet they veered.
And then, silence.
This is the point where the logic, as we understand it, fractures, where every expected action simply ceases.
The telemetry data is unambiguous. Instead of the straight, flat highway leading back to Yuba City, the Montego made a decisive turn. The evidence suggests a deliberate course change. They headed due east.
Towards the Plumas National Forest, a destination completely contrary to their known intentions, a decision that even now makes no sense. The journey was sustained, the road climbed steadily, the air grew noticeably thinner, and our models indicate a sharp plummet in temperature. They drove far past the snowline, deep into increasingly hostile terrain. Into the very teeth of an approaching storm, and then silence, not just from them, but from any conceivable explanation. What pulled them away from the safety of the valley, from any rational path, and drove them so relentlessly into that desolate wilderness?
The morning of February 2nd. The boys were due for their game. They never arrived.
Their parents were clear. These were not individuals prone to deviation, to breaking routine. The evidence suggests a remarkable consistency in their habits. The immediate panic, we now understand, was entirely justified.
Police searches commenced, as protocol demanded. But the timing was cruel. A severe blizzard descended, suffocating all immediate efforts. Visibility, access, it was all compromised. And then, silence.
For weeks, a profound emptiness. It wasn't until February 28th, nearly a month later, that a park ranger covering an extended patrol made the discovery.
The car, abandoned on a rugged service road, miles from any paved road, any town, deep in that snow-packed wilderness, a desolate, unforgiving landscape. It makes no sense, not in the context of what we knew about them.
The state of the vehicle at the scene, it only deepens the enigma, doesn't it?
Indeed, no signs of impact whatsoever. The chassis, the body panels, entirely intact.
And it wasn't truly stuck?
Not in any conventional sense. The tires had spun in the snow, certainly, indicating a momentary loss of traction, but the ground beneath it was firm enough. A simple push and it would have been free. 5 men could have easily dislodged it.
Yet it remained.
Precisely. The fuel tank registered a quarter full, more than enough to continue their journey.
And the terrain. I recall the road was challenging.
Extremely so. Rough, uneven, littered with obstacles. Yet the undercarriage completely undamaged. It makes no sense.
The evidence suggests the driver, Jack Madruga, navigated those bumps with an almost meticulous care, an unnatural precision given the circumstances. He drove it with extreme care, only to bring it to a halt.
And then silence. They just walked away.
Walk me through the scene inside the vehicle, analyst.
The keys were missing, investigator, completely absent from the ignition or the immediate vicinity.
And the state of the interior.
A passenger window was rolled down, wide open. Snow had drifted freely onto the seats, settling in a fine, cold layer.
Maps, navigation tools?
Left undisturbed in the glove box, untouched.
They abandoned the shelter of the heater, the vehicle's warmth. In these conditions, it makes no sense.
The evidence suggests they were dressed entirely inappropriately for the Sierra Nevada winter. Light jackets, sneakers, attire for a basketball game in the valley, not for a trek through this kind of snow.
Unprepared then. Desperate.
It would have to be. To leave that warmth, so utterly vulnerable?
Whatever compelled them to leave the vehicle, it had to be truly terrifying.
Yes.
And then, silence.
Let's turn to the Sean's testimony again. A witness, albeit one facing his own immediate crisis.
Joseph Shans, incapacitated in his vehicle, a mild heart attack underway. His account, while harrowing, is remarkably consistent on certain details.
He saw headlights appearing behind him, illuminating the immediate area.
Correct. And within that sudden glare, he distinctly observed a group. Several men, yes, but also a woman, clearly holding a baby, illuminated.
In his desperation, his distress, he called out. He cried for help.
And then, silence. Not just the absence of sound, but a profound, almost deliberate void.
The evidence suggests an absolute lack of response. No acknowledgement. No movement.
It makes no sense. A group of individuals, a vulnerable woman with an infant, confronted with someone in clear distress. The normal human instinct is to react, to help, or at least acknowledge, yet he received nothing. His story, rather than clarifying, only amplifies the unsettling nature of that night, and frankly, the horror.
Shans's deposition outlines a sudden shift. He states that the moment he called out for assistance, the lights in the vicinity extinguished, and concurrently the voices ceased, an abrupt termination of all activity, visual and auditory. A brief, unsettling whistle, according to his account, and then a profound stillness.
And then, silence.
His immediate impression was that they were actively concealing themselves from him.
The evidence suggests a critical divergence here. Was Sean's himself disoriented, perhaps hallucinating, or were the individuals he encountered in such a state?
But if neither was compromised, if Sean's account holds true for both parties, what then?
It makes no sense. To actively retreat further into the wilderness, into absolute darkness, away from the only potential source of assistance.
Away from their only chance of rescue, fleeing into the unknown because of the one person offering help.
Months. That's how long the families waited, isn't it? Just waiting.
That's correct, investigator. A protracted vigil against overwhelming odds. The snow, as the reports confirm, was relentless, drifts up to 15 feet in places.
Buried alive, effectively. The mountain became an impossible barrier.
Precisely. The official search, despite all efforts, had to be called off due to the sheer danger to personnel.
And the Montego, sitting there, a frozen tombstone. It made no sense. No note, no sign of forced entry, no indication of where 5 men might have simply vanished.
It truly didn't. The vehicle was intact, yet utterly devoid of the individuals it was meant to carry. The evidence suggests an abandonment, or perhaps an intentional departure, but without any discernible trail or immediate answers.
No clues. No footprints leading away into that white expanse. Just a perfectly preserved empty shell.
Exactly. A void where answers should have been.
And then, silence. A deafening silence that stretched for months.
Until the spring thaw. Only then did the mountain finally give up its dead.
June of 1978. Let's revisit the initial discovery of Ted Weiher.
It was chance, investigator. A group of motorcyclists riding deep into the remote backcountry. They stumbled upon it.
The Forestry Service trailer.
Precisely. Nearly 20 miles from where the car was located. It makes no sense to transport him that far, only to leave him in such an isolated place.
And what condition was the trailer in?
A window had been smashed, a clear point of entry. But once inside, the air was thick, the pervasive smell of decay. The evidence suggests he had been there for some time.
The body itself.
On the bed, investigator, wrapped tightly in sheets, a deliberate act of concealment.
It was Ted Weiher.
Confirmed. And then, silence. Just the wind and that lingering scent.
Of all the grim discoveries, Ted Weiher's remains, I think, are perhaps the most profoundly baffling aspect of this entire case.
The physical evidence supports that. His body mass was almost halved, a profound decline that tells its own story of prolonged suffering.
And the timeline. We're looking at a significant period after their disappearance, aren't we?
The beard growth alone consistently indicates survival for a period of 8 to 13 weeks, a long, drawn-out ordeal. The medical findings were clear. He died of starvation, compounded by severe hypothermia.
Starvation and hypothermia. In that environment, one would expect a barren, exposed location, a remote cave, perhaps, or out in the brutal elements.
And that's precisely where the data diverges from any logical expectation. The evidence suggests he wasn't exposed. He wasn't in some desolate wilderness hideaway.
He was found where exactly?
Inside a trailer, a facility maintained by the Forest Service, stocked, accessible. It makes no sense. The conditions for his death, given the location.
He endured for months, slowly deteriorating, inside a structure that offered protection, and died of exposure and lack of food, in a place that should have offered sanctuary, or at least the means to survive.
Precisely. We have the what and the how, but the why remains elusive.
And then, silence.
Let's review the immediate surroundings of the trailer. What did the scene tell us about the available provisions?
The evidence suggests an abundance, Detective. Inside the trailer, standard sea rations were present, and outside, a separate storage locker, notably opened, contained a substantial cache.
How substantial?
Enough dehydrated food to sustain all 5 men for well over a year, a significant supply.
And for warmth, the conditions were extreme.
A full propane tank ready to provide heat was found right there. Matches were scattered nearby, easily accessible.
So the means were present. Food, fuel, the ability to ignite it.
Precisely. But despite these vital resources, the gas was never engaged. The propane tank remained untouched, the matches unused.
They didn't even try?
No indication whatsoever. And the food, only superficial disturbances. They barely touched it.
And the outcome for Ted in particular?
Forensic analysis confirms it. Ted froze and starved to death.
Surrounded by everything he needed to survive.
It makes no sense. No, it doesn't. He was literally encased by the very means that could have saved him.
And then? Silence. Just a man. Frozen. Amidst plenty.
The snow, when it finally melted, it laid everything bare, didn't it? The final grim details.
Yes, the picture became disturbingly clear with the thaw. Madruga and Sterling. Their remains were located miles apart on opposing sides of the old mountain road.
Miles. And the cause? The time of death?
The evidence suggests hypothermia was almost immediate, early in their trek. A sudden, cruel surrender to the cold.
And what was left?
Animals. Post-mortem scattering. It made the scene even more fragmented.
So, in the end, they just walked until they dropped.
They did. That's the part that haunts me. The sheer, desperate persistence. It makes no sense to endure so much, only to collapse in such a desolate place.
And then, silence.
The discovery of Jackie Huett's remains, a grim but crucial development in the timeline. His father, after a tireless, desperate search, made the horrific find.
Yes, his own son's backbone and clothing, located under a manzanita bush. Investigator, remarkably close to the trailer.
So close. It places him right on the cusp of what should have been safety. The proximity begs the question, what happened there?
The evidence suggests Jackie had in fact made it to the shelter with Ted. He wasn't lost en route, but something transpired after their arrival.
He either died there, near the entrance, or perhaps he walked out, away from the relative safety of the trailer.
In a delirium, perhaps. Disoriented. His mind compromised by the extreme conditions. The urge to wander.
It makes no sense to leave, not after enduring so much to reach that point, not after surviving the initial ordeal.
Unless the sanctuary itself offered no escape from the growing internal chaos. The tragedy was absolute by then.
With Jackie, 4 of the 5 missing were finally accounted for. But the final piece of the puzzle, the true narrative of those last hours, remained elusive.
And then silence. A profound quiet, leaving only speculation in its wake. The mystery was far from over.
We accounted for 4 of them, but Gary Mathias, the 5th man, he was never found.
Not a trace, as if he simply ceased to exist.
Yet his tennis shoes were discovered inside the trailer.
The evidence suggests he absolutely made it there. He was present. We know that much.
And he had apparently taken Ted Weiher's larger leather shoes.
Likely due to severe frostbite, his feet would have been significantly swollen. His own shoes would have been unbearable, perhaps impossible to put on. A desperate exchange for mobility.
Mathias suffered from schizophrenia. He required medication he didn't have.
A critical detail. A severe lack of mental clarity, compounded by extreme physical trauma. It makes no sense that he simply vanished without leaving a clearer path.
So, a man disoriented, injured, and without his vital medication, he swaps shoes, presumably to keep moving, and then silence.
Did he walk out for help, attempting to find a way back from that desolate place?
Or did he, in his compromised state, simply wander into oblivion?
Mathias, he remains the undeniable focal point, doesn't he? All theories seem to orbit him.
Unquestionably. His military background speaks to a profound understanding of survival in extreme conditions. He knew the wilderness, knew what it demanded, and crucially, he knew he needed his medication.
It makes no sense when you consider those capabilities against the eventual outcome.
The evidence suggests a critical shift occurred. One prevailing theory posits he took the lead, driven by an acute psychotic episode, or perhaps an overwhelming primal fear.
Did his own hallucinations compel them up that mountain path? Or was he, conversely, the unwavering hero attempting to keep them alive in the trailer,
clinging to sanity until his own mind finally unraveled under the strain.
We're left with these two incredibly stark opposing narratives. Both are equally plausible, and both are deeply unsettling.
And then silence. A silence that has offered no definitive answers.
The primary questions linger, don't they? Why abandon the car so suddenly? Why hide from Sean's?
The evidence suggests a singular, overwhelming impulse: fear.
Fear of what, precisely? Sean's was a good Samaritan, attempting to assist.
Perhaps an encounter just prior, something at the convenience store that deeply unsettled them. Or perhaps their perception of Sean's himself was distorted. They might have seen him as authority, or worse, an aggressor.
It makes no sense. The vehicle, the lighted road, these are conventional symbols of safety, of sanctuary.
In their state of mind, in that moment, the fundamental logic of safety became utterly inverted, twisted.
So the dark, the dense forest,
offered more solace than the open, illuminated road. And then, silence.
The forensic reports, the scene photos, they tell us what happened, but not why. They simply waited. The heater, the provisions, all untouched.
The evidence suggests a profound psychological component, investigator. Psychologists term it learned helplessness.
Explain that.
For years, perhaps decades, these men were accustomed to a structured existence. Every need met, every decision made for them. They were used to being cared for, told what to do.
And in that trailer, faced with a complex mechanical system, a propane heater, a sealed food locker.
Exactly. To them, these weren't tools for survival. They may have been perceived as forbidden, too complex to operate without explicit instruction, or simply outside their domain of permissible action. A fear of breaking rules, perhaps, or a complete lack of understanding that they were allowed to use them.
It makes no sense. The means for survival were right there, within reach.
They weren't waiting for a solution to their immediate problem. They were waiting for someone else to solve it, for a rescue that, tragically, never came.
And then, silence.
We've cataloged everything meticulously, every personal effect from the 5 men, cross-referenced with family statements. But there remains one detail, an anomaly.
The gold watch, found roughly 15 feet from the trailer's entrance. A heavy, classic design. And it didn't belong to any of them. Their families, their friends, no one recognized it. Not a single person. The evidence suggests the presence of a 6th individual, or at least an object belonging to someone entirely external to the known victims.
A 6th person at the scene, before or during. Or perhaps it's a relic from a previous, unrelated visit. A red herring, deliberately or accidentally placed, muddling an already opaque situation.
It's an enigma, a detail that just doesn't fit. It makes no sense to simply discard something of that value, in that location, unless it was an oversight or a message.
And then silence. Absolute silence from every lead we pursue regarding its owner. It just sits there, in box 7, another silent question mark staring back at us.
The sheer effort involved in even attempting to retrace their steps, it's profoundly telling, a journey of such an extreme nature.
We're looking at nearly 20 miles, through deep snow and absolute darkness, and perhaps most strikingly, in nothing but sneakers.
A physical feat that, frankly, beggars belief. It's beyond mere endurance.
The evidence suggests an incredible, almost desperate propulsion, a manic energy, perhaps, or a sheer, unadulterated terror driving them forward against all logic.
And yet, halfway to the trailer, they bypass the old lodge, a warm, accessible shelter.
It makes no sense from any logical survival perspective, a deliberate rejection of sanctuary.
They walked right past it, past every chance of life, it seems, towards their own end.
What could possibly override the most fundamental human instinct for survival?
And then, silence.
The families carried that burden to their graves, a relentless, unanswered why shadowing them for decades.
They maintained their sons were good boys, decent, loved basketball, fought hard against the whispers, the crude rumors of foul play or drug running, and all the evidence supports that.
So it wasn't malice or recklessness, just a profound, inexplicable void, that agonizing question that haunted the mothers most of all.
Why didn't they eat?
It makes no sense. Not when you consider what they had on them.
The evidence suggests a protracted, agonizing decline, death by starvation. And one of them, we know, had a can opener in his pocket.
The ultimate cruel irony, isn't it? The means to survive right there, untouched. It truly is a tragedy beyond words.
And then, silence.
The file on the Yuba County Five, it still sits open, doesn't it? Despite all these years. Cold, yes, but never truly closed.
A wrong turn. That's how it always seems to begin, doesn't it? A simple misstep, yet the evidence suggests it quickly became something far more absolute. A death sentence, almost preordained.
It's a stark reminder, isn't it, of how quickly the mind can fray under pressure, the sheer fragility of it when pushed beyond its limits.
And the mountain itself, an unyielding, brutal indifference. It makes no sense how quickly the elements can strip away all pretense of control. No human agency could stand against that kind of apathy.
5 men. They went up that mountain together.
4 returned, or more accurately, 4 were recovered, their bodies brought back down from the cold. And then silence.
The 5th, still there, absorbed, part of the forest now.
The forest is a formidable keeper of secrets, isn't it?
Particularly when nature intervened so thoroughly, the snowmelt especially, it meticulously erased any primary tracks from that night.
Washed away, yes, and with them, our clearest path to the truth. It makes no sense, the abruptness of it all.
We're left to grapple with possibilities. Was it a sudden, catastrophic mental break? A mind fracturing under duress?
Or a desperate chase, spiraling out of control on that desolate mountain road. The evidence suggests a violent culmination.
Or perhaps a tragic series of misunderstandings, escalating in the profound isolation of that environment.
And then, silence. Just silence. We're still trying to hear